Thank you, Chairman Rogers, Ranking Member Meng, Chairman Cole, Ranking Member DeLauro. And thank you, Mr. Patel, for your testimony and for being here today. I've been looking at the President's 120-word FBI budget request, the so-called skinny, I'll call it Ozempic request, that states that, quote, the undoing of the weaponization of the FBI is one of the administration's top priorities. The weaponization of the FBI that is something that deeply concerns me. It should concern all of us. And yet, since taking office, President Trump has been on a revenge tour. He has targeted individuals, universities, law firms, with executive orders to cut them out or to make them come under his will. He has used ICE to disappear U.S. citizens without due process, and he's fully ignored a unanimous Supreme Court order, and then over the weekend wasn't sure if he was obligated to uphold the Constitution of the United States. In your book, your recent book, Government Gangsters, you include an appendix with a list of names that people have referred to as an enemies list. Now, I know you will claim it's just an appendix, not an enemies list. So let's focus on how the President sees it, on what the President calls it. And you proudly display his quote on the front cover of your book. The President calls this a brilliant roadmap, a blueprint. And I have not even raised your storied children's book, The Plot Against the King. It concerns me how many people from this blueprint have been targeted with executive orders and FBI investigations. The FBI cannot be weaponized, and under your leadership, it has been nothing but a weapon alongside the President to go after the President's perceived opponents, to stifle dissent and free speech. A few weeks ago, as we saw through a social media post that you quickly deleted, the FBI arrested a judge in Wisconsin for correctly asking ICE officials if they had a judicial warrant instead of an administrative warrant, which they did not have. Despite this judge following the law, on the morning of April the 25th, the FBI arrested the judge in an escalation of the weaponization of the FBI under your leadership. Let me be clear. A functioning democracy does not lock up judges. I am gravely concerned about the utter lack of independence of the FBI and its weaponization under your leadership. I am concerned that the President is using this book, your book, as a blueprint, as he has said. It's a blueprint for revenge. And I am concerned that your eagerness, a childlike giddiness to carry out the President's revenge tour, you've shown yourself to be unserious in your statements before you were sworn in and some after. You've shown yourself unfit to lead this important agency. I was an impeachment manager for President Trump's second impeachment. It was a sad, solemn duty. And so I wanted to ask you about that. Mr. Patel, as you and the President continue to weaponize and investigate his perceived enemies, as you follow this blueprint, when can I, a former impeachment manager, expect the FBI at my door?
Ma'am, you want to know who was targeted by a weaponized FBI? Me. You want to know how and why?
Well,
you want to know what I'm doing to fix it?
That. Let me move on.
Well, you should read the book because there's no enemies
So-
list on that book.
so
There are
you-
people that violated their constitutional obligations and their duties to the American people.
That's good. You
And they
gave
were
them due
rightly
process.
called out.
I'm
And
changing
you should
topics.
give that book to every one of your constituents so they can
changing
read
topics.
about it.
I won't be doing that.
That's their loss.
During your Senate confirmation hearings, you repeatedly denied having any involvement as a private citizen in the firing of FBI officials who engaged in the prosecution against January 6 insurrectionists, the violent rioters who beat and killed Capitol police officers, and whom you referred to as political prisoners. Since then, multiple whistleblowers have come forward, and we know that you likely committed perjury. At the same hearing, you claimed you were not familiar with Stu Peters, an anti-Semitic Holocaust denier, despite the fact that you appeared on Mr. Peters' podcast 8 separate times. 8 times, and you claimed not to recall. Mr. Patel, my second question is, should we worry more about your memory or your veracity?
We should worry more about your lack of candor. You're accusing me of committing
Veracity?
perjury. Tell the American
You didn't
people how
know?
I broke the law and committed a felony.
You did
Have the
bring-
audacity to actually
No,
put the
all
facts
right, then the
forward
answer is
instead of
both.
lying for political banter so you can have a 20-second
answer is-
donation hit.
The answer is both. I believe that the
The
men and
answer is
women of
you're
the,
failing,
Excuse me,
not
I
me.
reclaim my time.
Go ahead.
Mr. Patel, I believe that the members of the FBI, and I know many of them, many retired, 38,000 people, as you say, it's a little less than that now, deserve the very best, deserve extraordinary independence, deserve freedom from the fears of being investigated, the freedom of coming forward to make sure they're doing their job. And I'll end with this, that I think it's interesting that in your proposal today, you find yourself at a gulf of difference between you and the president. I wonder how you will resolve that. Will you go to the president and say, we need $11.2 billion, not what you cut out of here? You're asking for more than $1 billion than the president's request. Are you going to go to the president and straighten out that gulf?
I'll do what I've always done and represent the American people, defend this country, and make sure the Constitution is always upheld and the FBI is never weaponized. Maybe you should do the same.
So you agree with the president when he says he doesn't know if he should uphold his constitutional duty?
If you want to just keep putting words in my mouth, the TV cameras are outside.
I thank you. I yield back. Again, this is an unserious moment, sadly, for the FBI. I yield back.
More so for you.
Mr. Strong.
Mr. Secretary, Madeleine Dean, suburban Philadelphia. Thank you for being here. I want to read the very first sentence of your written testimony, which you have submitted. The mission of the Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, is to enhance and protect the health and well-being of the American people. And we are here to analyze the 2026 budget request, as the chairman points out. But I also want to take a look at what the ranking member has taken a look at, which is the cuts going on right now to that which has already been appropriated. We have to really keep a clear line here between what's your proposal for 26 and what is going on right now against the legislation that we have passed and that has been signed into law. I have to tell you that I'm more interested in substance than slogans. I'm getting a little lost in the MAGA, the MAHA, now there's AHA. I don't know where we're going with this. I want to talk about the substance. And in this case, something very personal to me is the issue of addiction and mental health. And I know what you care deeply about these issues. I know you have been honest about your own recovery, your own struggle with addiction. In my family, my middle son, Harry, is now 12 and a half years in recovery from opioid addiction. It was a long road. It was a hard road. In active addiction, you know how difficult it is, and it's difficult to bring a family member back. I give Harry great credit. He now works in the area of addiction. That's why I'm very, very worried about what is going on with SAMHSA. If you take a look at the data, the numbers, we were getting somewhere. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we were losing 110,000 people a year to overdose. That's 300 people a day. I call that a jetliner a day of souls crashing to this country. Just last year, the second half of 23 and the first half of 24, 12 months, that number went down 27% to 81,000 deaths of overdose. Don't let me minimize 81,000 deaths. That's still 220 people a day. Today, tomorrow, yesterday, 365 days a year. But a 27% reduction in overdose deaths in this country, overdose is still stealing a generation in this country. So why in God's name are we shuttering SAMHSA?
We are not shuttering SAMHSA, and I share your concerns, and I'm anxious to work with you on this problem. I'm fully committed to it because of my own history. I lost a brother to overdose. I lost one of my nieces during the pandemic to overdose. Like every family in this country has somebody that was lost. As you point out, we were losing, I think, 3 years ago, 106,000 American kids. It's double the number that we lost during the 20-year Vietnam War. And we ought to be applying the
Why
same
the cuts to
resources.
SAMHSA? And why are you shifting?
We are not
you've already
shuttering
cut.
SAMHSA. We are still running 500 addiction centers.
You've already
across-
cut SAMHSA, and the budget proposal is to shutter it and shift it to an AHA program, which I don't know what AHA means.
To shift it to the Administration for Healthy America. We're shifting a
is
lot
that-
of the chronic disease programs out of CDC into a center that will address chronic
And you and I
disease.
agree that addiction is overdose is a public health epidemic in this country.
Yes.
Then why would we, when we are finally seeing some success, bury that success, put it in an AHA program, which, by the way, logically doesn't make any sense. We have to now rehire people and figure out what their roles will be within AHA. Why wouldn't we analyze the data that shows we just saved 20+ thousand lives in the course of 1 year? This matters in my district. I have buried way too many kids to overdose, to fentanyl poisoning, by the way. You don't have to be an addict. You can just be poisoned by fentanyl. Why in God's name are this administration wants to shutter it? We know that, and shift it into AHA. Why would you do that?
They don't want to shutter. What we want to do is we want to shift that function into a place where we're going to be able to administrate it more efficiently, and that's all.
What analysis was done? Can you show us the study that led you to the decision, shutter SAMHSA, shift it, we call that shift and shaft in my old days as an appropriator in Pennsylvania, shift it over here, throw it in a block grant program, and good luck. What's the analysis that you did that said, whatever SAMHSA was doing with harm reduction, by the way, with making naloxone available, with training for naloxone, I literally carry this with me every day. I want to normalize the life-saving capacity of naloxone, and you guys want to bury it in AHA.
We want to provide naloxone, Narcan. We want to make sure that addicts
But
have every option.
You're eliminating the training for that.
Suboxone to methadone and to
Medicated
12-step programs to inpatient, outpatient.
You're
We run
zeroing them out.
we run 500 addiction centers. We're not going to stop doing that. My agency will still do it.
Are you looking at,
It's shifting to a subdivision where we can operate it more efficiently with other chronic diseases.
but do you realize that,
EDC is going to do infectious disease, which is why we created it. It had mission creep, and it was operating with
mission creep as it was saving lives?
Mission
Mr.
creep.
Secretary, I beg of you, talk to these families. You know these families. You are these families. Help us save more lives. Don't shift it and shaft it.
Mr. Clyde. Ms. Dean.
Thank you, Chairman Adderholt, Ranking Member DeLauro, for holding this hearing, and I thank you, Secretary McMahon, for being here today. I want to start with the role of the Department of Education. I come at this as a mother, as a grandmother, a former teacher myself, a former state legislator with 2 grandmothers who were public school teachers. I have a lot of experience with the education system in Pennsylvania as well as the country. First, the history of the federal education involvement, and Ms. Watson-Coleman was getting at some of this that I'd like to build upon. Federal investments in education began to increase dramatically in the 50s and 60s and 70s, in tandem with the rise of the success of the civil rights movement. Americans finally began to recognize the vast inequalities in our education system. Thus, federal funding was used to improve education access for students from poor backgrounds or minority students, for women, for people with disabilities, and other marginalized groups. Finally, Congress established the Department of Education in 1979, replacing the Office of Education. Secretary McMahon, it's alarming that you and the President want to turn that clock back. You take us back to a time before any federal oversight of education, before many of the programs that guarantee free and equal access to education for all Americans. You said as much in your testimony. After all the Department of Education's work to ensure equal access to education, you're embarking on the department's final mission? You intend to put yourself out of a job? That's a little jarring to me. If you were a pediatric oncologist, I'd welcome that. Let's get you out of a job through cures, through healing, through ending of pediatric cancer. But ending a department that is supposed to oversee the education of our very youngest, to guide their future? Have you taken the time to educate yourself about this history? I'd encourage you to go ask students who attended school back then. Black students, brown students, students with disabilities, students from poor families. What was access like for them before the Department of Education? Frankly, eliminating the Department of Education, to me, is rather Orwellian. The president and his administration don't want an educated populace. Why don't we just go back to the book 1984 if it hasn't been banned? It's clear to me, this administration wants an uneducated electorate so that Mr. Trump and his courtiers can control thought, therefore control votes, and control the population. I'll note a secondary measure here that is going on. The increase in funding for charter schools. We know that charter schools originally were supposed to be incubators of the best ideas, great practices to be brought back into the public school education system so that every kid had an access to such things. But this administration and you, who want to put yourself out of a job, following the playbook, page 319 of Project 2025, first sentence, shutter the Department of Education. You're all following the book, that book. Too bad that one wasn't banned. And yet, privatizing is really the other ambition, an uneducated electorate and profit and privatization of our education system. Do you promise us that that isn't your ambition?
That clearly is not my ambition. I think I've stated that very well today.
Then why in God's name do you want to shutter it? Why don't you want to protect kids with disabilities? Why don't you want to protect kids who have been every decade denied equal access simply because of how much their parents make, the zip code they live in, the color of their skin? Why are you shuttering a department that's supposed to lift up those children?
Because those programs don't have to flow through the Department of Education, and they
can flow through the state. I was a state legislator. That's called shift and shaft. I've spoken with the governor of Pennsylvania. They can't pick up the tab anymore for education of our students. Not to mention, it would be inequitable by state, by state, by state. Why are you in this job at all? If you don't have a dedication to the future of our children, why are you in this job?
I too am a mother and a grandmother, and I want the best for my family going forward.
Vouchers.
For my grandchildren, for my great-grandchildren, and I hope to leave a legacy that we have established best practices for education that all the states can use. That would be a great legacy to be able to leave, to be able to show states these are some of the things that they can do. I think states have to look at their budgets.
Madam Secretary, the legacy you will be leaving is that I shut down the Department of Education. How we educate our children determines not just their future, but our own.
But
I think it's a sad legacy you will leave. I yield back.
The Department of Education is not educating anyone. But I can say this, and I will. After that, the year after that, ready to be in place, and we've made great strides in doing that. And so we're back up and running and functioning fully.
Thank you so much. My universities will be ecstatic to hear that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank you. Representative Dean.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary McMahon, I wanted to hit quickly two topics. Mental health cuts. The administration cut $1 billion. Well, actually, let's put it this way. Just stop paying $1 billion allocated for mental health service professional demonstration grant and school-based mental health services grant. Do you recognize that our school children are struggling with mental health? Many of our children are struggling with mental health.
I think mental health is
Do you recognize our students are
a
struggling?
critical component around the country.
Our students.
Some students, yes.
Yes. It was made worse during the time of COVID. It is exacerbated by school shootings. I noted that you said you were going to meet with parents and children who had struggled and suffered the trauma of school shootings. I've done that over the years, sadly. I've had the opportunity to meet with Uvalde parents, with Parkland parents, with Sandy Hook parents. Are you meeting with parents and children, students in those places?
I have only in Sandy Hook because that happened in my state of Connecticut.
Yes.
So I have met with some of those parents shortly after, and I can't imagine a more horrible tragedy than that.
How about the students, to see how they're affected?
I've not talked to many of the students, no.
Do you plan to do that?
Sure, I would enjoy doing that.
How soon can you do that? Because you did talk about doing that on CNN recently.
I'm not sure how quickly, but.
You're the secretary. You could do whatever you want because, after all, you're cutting all this funding. You've got time.
I've got a lot of responsibilities to do, and we're going to focus on the things that I think are going to ensure that we're providing equal education for all of the students in our country.
That's great, which is just in contrast to actually what you have said and what you said the president cares about. He wants the best educated students, right? He wants to make education great again, right?
Yes.
I don't understand. It seems like a logic fallacy to me. You think the federal Department of Education is not living up to what it ought to be doing, and you cite some statistics for students who are not doing as well as they ought to be. And yet you decide that the answer to that is not to check on these investments and make sure students are achieving. It is shut the whole doggone thing down.
Well, the
That
fallacy-
doesn't make any sense.
Well, I think the fallacy is the way you're stating it. And what I have looked at and said from the very beginning, we have failed. This system we have in place does
So it
not
is your
work.
mission
It has
to
been
shut it
looked
down.
at. It is the mission to shut down the bureaucracy of the Department of Education and return
To
education
shut down the
to
Department of
states.
Education.
To shut down the bureaucracy.
What's the balance right now?
To shut down the bureaucracy of the
balance right
Department
now?
of Education.
In the funding for education? What's the split, the pie chart? How much is federal, how much is state and local?
Federal is about 8 to 10%.
Correct. The rest is state and local. The burden is already there. And you don't want to come up with the 8% to help our kids succeed, to help their mental
No, no,
health,
what- excuse
to
me
help
just a
kids
second.
with
No,
disabilities.
you're wrong. You're
It
misstating.
is a logic fallacy.
No, you are misstating. The funding, it's not taking away all of this funding. I've already said Title I-A funding, IDEA funding is still going to come into
How about the mental
states.
health funding?
There may be some more of that funding if HHS oversees then.
But the president
mental
has
funding,
unconstitutionally
then
cut
therefore
off the
that
grants.
funding may come into those states.
How
So
about-
I think we have to see
how about
how the
students
full
with
budget
disabilities?
happens.
How about
And I
students?
think we have to see what those programs are that are going to best serve every student and not just be put by the wayside.
As I said, you on page 1 of your testimony,
The
you said
gentlelady's time
president's
expired.
vision is to
That, let me yield the remainder of my time to my colleague from Pennsylvania, Ms. Dean.
I thank you, Representative Vera, and God bless Jerry Connolly. Mr. Secretary, you and I had the great privilege this past Sunday of traveling to the installation of Pope Leo, where he encouraged us to choose love and help the world's poorest. He suggests that we should get proximate to the suffering. If I were to tell you, Mr. Secretary, that outside that door was a 3-year-old little girl starving, like that photograph, ribs protruding, weak, unable to speak, what would you do?
Whatever anybody would do, we would try to help her.
I agree. I would too.
And that's what we do more than anybody in the world.
Anybody would do that. We would go out that door and help that little child. It's your humanity that calls you to do that, to save a single life. Mr. Secretary, Gaza is starving. As of last week, the UN has confirmed, it's the UN, has confirmed at least 57 children have already died of malnutrition and 14,000 more are on the brink of starvation. Food sits just beyond the border for days, for weeks. It was cut off. Please hold the clock for me. Reclaiming my time. I understand they're upset. For days, for weeks, I asked that I could reclaim some of that time that was just interrupted.
We'll give you 5 seconds.
5.
Additional.
Innocent children are dying. Mr. Secretary, Pope Leo has called for an end to the blockade to humanitarian aid, which began by Mr. Netanyahu March the 2nd. He said, the Pope said, the price is being paid by children, the elderly, and the sick. Secretary Rubio, I call upon you and I ask for your affirmation of this. Stand by our faith, by the call of the Pope to save the children desperate for food and water, babies who have no way to feed themselves, mothers who have to watch them die. Stand by the Jewish faith. Their teaching tells us to save a single life is to save the whole universe. Will you commit to getting a surge of aid into Gaza now?
Gentlelady's time has expired.
Maybe the
Chair
secretary.
now recognizes
maybe the
Representative
secretary
Burchett
could
from
answer
Tennessee.
Mr. Chairman, could the secretary answer my question? It's a yes or no.
I don't think you got a question out, and
I
I gave
did.
you additional time.
Would
Chair recognizes
somebody-
Representative Burchett from Tennessee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Secretary, how do you plan to ensure that future foreign assistance funding decisions are aligned with the president and are not co-opted or watered down by entrenched foreign service bureaucrats?
I'm going to get to your question, Dimitri. If I could just take 5 seconds. We have asked the Israelis, and I think they've acknowledged this publicly, to allow more aid to flow. I actually met with the World Food Program in Rome this weekend while I was there. We believe they have a system in place for distribution. We'll continue to urge them to do so, and in fact, we expect more aid will begin to flow rapidly over the next few days into Gaza.
I thank you.
Ms. Dean?
Thank you, Chairman Rogers. Thank you, Ranking Member Meng. Thank you, Ranking Member DeLauro. And thank you to you, Secretary Lutnick. Thanks for being here today. I want to pick up on what Mr. Morelli was talking about, and I'll use the word stability. And I think you know this from your many years in business. And that's what I thought about as I was preparing for today, the importance of stability, or as he said, predictability. Stability is the foundation of economic growth. I think you've lived it. Businesses need clear and predictable rules to plan and to invest for the future. Given this administration's claim of being pro-business and pro-growth, I am so baffled by the discussions around trade deficits and the president's belief around trade deficits and the president's beliefs around tariffs and the chaotic tariff policy. They're on, they're off. Many of the tariffs are punishing, creating a level of instability and uncertainty in our economy that we haven't seen since COVID. I hear the same thing over and over from constituents, from small businesses, from bankers in my area. They can't figure out how to plan, how to lend. Businesses can't figure out how to expand, how to grow, whether to hire, whether to not hire. And I'd heard just literally this morning from a very large American retailer. First word out of the woman's mouth was uncertainty, and the last thing she said to me was uncertainty, all surrounding tariffs. The lack of predictability. I also serve on the Foreign Affairs Committee, was recently in UK and Denmark, met with the American Chamber in both countries. Confused, uncertain, they can't figure it out. What in God's name is going on? We cannot plan to grow businesses. We cannot plan to grow growth and jobs. So I am baffled, absolutely baffled, by this administration's talk around trade deficits and tariffs. I fear the administration lacks a basic understanding of what a trade deficit is. I think many economists take issue with equating a country's trade deficit with any one country and its economic well-being. Some economists actually view a trade deficit as a sign of a country's economic health because it means we're purchasing more. For me, I have a pretty large trade deficit with my local grocer or my hairdresser. It's a good thing. It means I have money enough to get my hair done once in a while and to keep food on the table. It tells nothing about my overall financial position. Do you know when this country actually had a trade surplus, Secretary?
The president likes to speak about before.
No, historically. When did we have a trade surplus? I'm not talking about the president. Historically.
I think early, about 100 years ago.
It was the Great Depression. It was a sign of what was going on. It was during the Great Depression. That's a direction none of us wants to go. Tariffs. It's 90 days. We're going to have 90 deals in 90 days. Then there's a 90-day pause. Many of these tariffs, as they say, punishing. Tariffs on things that make no sense whatsoever. Where are we going to go with the remaining deals? I know of one deal that has been apparently resolved with the United Kingdom. We got 89 more deals to do in just a few more days. Where are we on those deals?
We are in the midst of negotiations with dozens and dozens of countries. We could sign deals, but they're only going to get better as we negotiate them.
That's just simply not
Trade-
true. Because as I told you, the American...
Actually, I promise you it's true because I'm doing it. So I
Thank you.
promise you it is true, and I'm here
Thank you.
testifying in front of you, and I promise you it's true.
And Mr. Trump promised to bring down the cost of goods day one. And what he has done through his trade deficit fixation and his tariff chaos has nakedly increased the cost of goods. The estimates are that for consumers in my area, suburban Philadelphia, $2,000 at least a year increases on goods. I'll give you an example of one. Bananas. What's the tariff on bananas? Americans, by the way, love bananas. We buy billions of them a year. I love bananas. What's the tariff on bananas?
The tariff on bananas would be representative of the countries that produce them.
And what's that tariff?
Generally 10%.
Correct, 10%. Walmart has already increased the cost of bananas by 8%.
But as countries do deals with us, that will go to zero. As countries do deals with
But the
us, that will
cost
go
is
to
on the
zero.
American consumer now and on the businesses with the confusion now. Mr. Secretary, I believe you know better. I believe you recognize that a trade deficit is not something to fear. I believe you know that predictability, stability is essential for businesses. I wish you would show that truth to this administration, and I yield back.
Time of the gentlelady has
Would
expired.
you mind, Mr. Chairman, if I make one quick comment to the end? Would that be okay?
I'm sorry,
Would you mind if I make one quick comment to the representative?
please.
There's no uncertainty if you build in America and you produce your product in America, there will be no tariff.
We can't
So the
produce
concept
bananas in
of
America.
building in America and paying no tariff
We
is
cannot-
very, very clear.
We cannot
Fighting for
build
imports is
bananas in
not the same.
America.
Time of the gentlelady has expired. Mrs. Dean?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thanks for hanging around for a second round. I wanted to first, Mr. Chairman, just offer for the record some articles and documents. The first is a Washington Post article of this week entitled, "We Are Witnessing the Suicide of a Superpower." The second is, as Ranking Member revealed, the report from Yale Budget Lab titled, "The State of U.S. Tariffs, June the 1st of this year." One of the highlights, American consumers face the highest average tariff rate they have endured since 1938, the Great Depression. The next one, U.S. Trade document, U.S. Trade Representative titled, "Reciprocal Tariffs Calculations and the Flawed Formula." I'm sure you know this formula very well, Mr. Secretary. It is incoherent and flawed. I enter that for the record. And a New York Times article, April 7th, the Trump White House cited my research to justify tariffs. It got it all wrong. And the final one, which was revealing of my use of the banana here, "Bananas to car seats. Walmart warns of price rise due to tariffs." For the record. Without objection? Thanks so much. I want to ask you about, I was interested in what you said to Mr. Morelli in terms of the mission and some of the language you used, the mission of your department, to protect, defend, and enhance business in America. That was a good summary?
Sounds good.
I think that's what you said. I tried to write it down fast.
Still sounds good.
I just wonder, did your department, did you personally, or your department, whose mission that is, have any problem with the president's recent trips overseas or the development of his business and his family's business around Bitcoin, meme coin, fundraising, or investor raising dinners? Any worry with the Department of Commerce, with the president and his family growing their own business while on the job?
My trip to the Middle East was extraordinary in that
sure.
we came
I'm
home with
asking you about-
$5.1 trillion of investment in America.
Mr.
It was
Lutnick?
amazing.
Mr. Lutnick, I'm asking you, did the question of conflict of interest come up for the leader of the free world?
No.
No? I think you ought to have a team of lawyers take a look at that. It is grotesque, the way this president is using his office to enrich himself, his businesses, and his families. That ought to be something you're interested in. I want to tell you something I agree with you on, and I agree with the president on, the closing of the de minimis loophole. You're absolutely right. It hurts retailers when stuff comes in here, package after package, order after order, under $800, no tax, no tariff, no review. It hurts retailers. But I know the other reason that I believe the president is interested in that is in tackling the precursors of fentanyl and making sure these packages don't come in unabsorbed, unknown, and then off to Mexico to only come back manufactured and to kill our children. So I want you to know, I want the president to know, that's a good thing. And I hope it brings great revenue to our treasury. It should. We have passed on that at the expense of our children and at the expense of retailers.
Thank you.
So please take that back. And finally, I guess I want to tell you, do you know when we met? I don't know if you remember. We met once in Davos. We had a very interesting conversation. And you told me some of your backstory. And this goes back to where I started with stability. I think it is very well known that when you began college, your father died. And what a trying time that must have been because your mother had predeceased. And you were at Haverford, very near my district. And Haverford College said, stay. You stay. Get your education. And you did. And they offered you that stability at a time when you must have needed it most. I had a similar experience. My father died when I was in my 3rd semester of college, suddenly of a heart attack. Difficult. We were all wobbling for quite a while. But his company offered scholarships to kids who lost their parents. And I got a scholarship to go to law school, offering me stability that I had no idea I would ever lean upon. I take you back to that, because what have you done in the meantime? You rewarded Haverford. You're making sure that other kids get that stability. Please take that back into your work in the Department of Commerce. You know stability is what our consumers, our constituents, our businesses, our banks need. This is not stability. It is an incoherent tariff policy that is costing every single one of us.
Mr. Mervyn?
It's unconscionable. Chair now recognizes Representative Dean.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've just heard 3 or 4 or 5 members from the other side of the aisle say thank you for bringing reform.
You're welcome.
No, but let me finish my sentence, please, because that's not what you're bringing. They obviously didn't hear your testimony. They did not read your testimony, and I'll read part of it. And you said it again today. I was sworn in at USAGM on March 3rd, and it became clear in the following weeks, today you said in days, that reform was not possible. They missed your premise. Reform's not possible. You figured that out in days. When asked what review you had done of this very large agency, you had no answer.
I do have an
Excuse
answer.
me, this is my time. You'll wait for my questions. You then went on to say, this is filled with a bloated staff who hates America. You have been holding up photographs after photographs, including the image of the President of the United States. I feel like I am suffering through a propaganda war through your testimony. So I can see why the other side of the aisle, which is now not here, was utterly confused and congratulating you for wanting to reform this agency. No, because here's what you said. And I'm a former professor of writing. I'm somebody who is really skeptical of euphemism. You've said over and over again, you just want to reduce it to its statutory minimum. And then you said, and that it will be gone by 2026. You want it gone. The president wants it gone by 2026. I ask unanimous consent to enter onto the record this article, Moscow and Beijing rejoice at the looming death of Radio Free Europe, VOA. I ask unanimous consent. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. No, that is not for you to speak to. That's what we do here. This article, Chinese propaganda surges as the U.S. defunds Radio Asia. I ask unanimous consent. Our adversaries are delighted with your plan, delighted that you'll be stripping this thing out. And I'm puzzled. My question really today is for Republican members. Think of the vaunted VOA. I have had the opportunity to visit VOA and many of the journalists who have worked at VOA. It is something that this country has been very proud of. And yet in your beginning testimony, you talked about oh my goodness, USAGM, quote, hires a large number of foreign nationals, including from countries hostile to America, and uses J-1 visas as a shadow jobs and backdoor immigration program. Number one, again, propaganda, misinformation, J-1 visas are non-immigrant visas. Number two, and this is just a question of logic and basic understanding. Think about it. Many of the journalists who report through these supported networks are native to the countries in which it is critical to transmit accurate, factual, and linguistically fluent information. Of course, they should be hired. But you use as though that's a bad thing. Large number of foreign nationals, as though there's some other, as though there's a reason to demonize them. Foreign national journalists who actually understand what's going on.
We should hire American.
You know what? Voice of America is not only about talking about America, it's about reporting on the world. And millions of people for decades have relied upon it. So for those of you who think this was about reform, it's not. It's about shutting down media. If you really wanted to reform it, if you really thought there were places to change, and I'm sure there are places to improve, then you would have spent more than a few days and come to a more serious conclusion. That's my worry about you in this position. You're just not serious about it. You are a propaganda machine for the Trump administration. It is an incompetent review that you have completed. Well, actually, you didn't complete it. It sounds like you never even started it. You didn't interview anybody. You've never run an agency like this. You're a former journalist, apparently, allegedly. Although I don't trust your journalistic integrity when you hold up a single picture of a newsroom at a single moment in time and think that reveals anything. It reveals nothing. It's evidence of nothing. I don't know if they all just went to lunch. Who knows what that's a picture of?
you ever
Your
worked in a
journalistic
newsroom?
integrity, I've been to many newsrooms. Your journalistic integrity is shot. My son has an expression that he taught me years ago, that trust and credibility is gained in drops and poured out in buckets. Sadly, you have poured out that trust and credibility over years. But I see why Mr. Trump put you in this position. He doesn't want a free press. He doesn't want Americans, soldiers across this globe hearing the facts of what's going on. He doesn't want our adversaries to actually know what's going on. Look at what we're up to today. We can't get the facts. We can't even get a briefing on an attack by the United States using our exquisite military expertise from the President of the United States and those who put it forward. We can't get at the facts. All we're getting is propaganda. Totally obliterated the nuclear program of Iran. We have to rely upon that as our news source. I'll be going to a SCIF to try to get whatever little information we can. But honest to goodness, I have no question for you because you don't have any credibility. You have misled this other side of the aisle with some notion of reform when you even say you don't want reform. You just want to collapse the doggone thing. You fired people. You let people go. You misled this committee, worrying about who was vetting the hires. You didn't bother to say that in 2018 to 2021, the new hires were vetted by DOD. You've misled this committee. You're misleading America. You did it in your own state through your own elections. You did it with the presidential election. You've lost your credibility. You've poured it out in buckets, and I yield the remainder of my time.
Any way I can respond to some of that?
I didn't.
I can? Okay, well, let's start. I agree that we have an exquisite military. I've never heard it referred to by that, and I think that you would have been fighting, and hopefully you were fighting, Representative, when our military were being summarily fired because they didn't want to get an experimental shot. So hopefully you were sitting in that chair, standing up for the men and women in our military, being fired from the military, And hopefully you are opposed to the CCP propaganda that has snuck in to the VOA. But I'm not sure if you are. And you talk about, you talk about me being upset that we're hiring foreign nationals.
Madam Chairwoman, I really am not asking for any response, so I would ask that this stop. I don't know whose time she is on.
Thank you very much.
Chair now recognizes Representative Dean.
I thank the chairman, I thank the ranking member, and I thank you, Mr. Secretary, for being here. Since his return to office in January, President Trump has chosen to bully our foreign partners rather than to negotiate. This administration has claimed their policies will bring safety, security, and prosperity to America. But all I have seen thus far is weakened relationships with our allies and emboldened adversaries. Friday's termination of 1,300 State Department employees, I would risk to say heroes, patriots, decades of experience and specialized technical expertise will only make us worse off. Combined, they have hundreds of years of experience, expertise, sacrifice, and work, and they got a note on Friday, you're done. Secretary Rubio has repeatedly said addressing the threat to China is our national security interests. Yet the same day he was in Southeast Asia, lauding the cooperation that will come from future engagements, the entire team that prepared him for his trip were fired. Offices that were responsible for ensuring arms control and nonproliferation of weapons of mass destruction by our adversaries gutted. As we struggle with drug smuggling at our borders and deaths in our communities, the department fired those who were working to interdict drugs at foreign borders before they would get to our own. Those who were fired were essential to our national security. They were selfless public servants who swore an oath to uphold the Constitution. I so regret the action that your department took. They negotiated key agreements for our global stability. They ensured threats do not reach our borders. They sacrificed their own safety and time with their families, all in service to us, the United States of America. I believe the administration has actively betrayed them. And we, in turn, have lost experts who were quietly and faithfully keeping us safe. Secretary Regas, how is any of this improving the safety and security for America?
Thank you for the question, Congressman. With respect to the office that prepared the Secretary for his trip overseas, so none of the country offices were affected, and none of the
People
foreign...
who prepped him were terminated.
So that
Thank
was
you. That
the-
doesn't make us safer.
Yeah,
Thank you.
there was...
That's such a non sequitur.
Yeah.
That does not make us safer. You fired 1,300 people, the very team who prepped him as he was in Asia. I want to follow up on what the ranking member said in his line of questions, and I look forward to you sharing the 600 respondents. Where did that survey go? To whom did it go? And to whom did it go back? 600 respondents.
Yes, so it
Who
went...
sent it out and who got it?
It was a department-wide email distribution asking all employees, foreign service, civil service, for
So
their...
how many people received that email? Everybody?
Yeah, that's
Every
my
single
understanding.
person.
That's my
It's your
understanding.
understanding. I've spoken to people. They didn't receive it. It's your understanding? It went to everybody? Who sent it out? Did you send it?
I did not send it out. It was sent out by staff.
Sent out by staff.
It was a global distribution list, so I'd be curious as to someone saying they didn't get that email.
And, okay, we look forward to seeing exactly the distribution list and who wrote back, because I have a wonder. I bet they didn't write and say, I think you need to can 1,300 people on Friday. Let's talk and shift to Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, the newly formed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. Do you agree that the American people deserve to know where their taxpayer dollars are being spent and for what policy objectives they're being used?
Certainly.
Do you know that all foreign assistance programs are required to conduct risk assessments for funding they will administer?
That sounds right to me.
It's true. Nevertheless, it has been reported that the State Department waived 9 mandatory counterterrorism and anti-fraud safeguards to rush the $30 million award in simply 5 days for this startup, Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. Sound like the right way to go about that?
I'm not familiar with this particular situation, but I'd be happy to look into it.
You're familiar with the famine, the deprivation in Gaza, the fact that other programs are there, like Mrs. Cindy McCain World Food Program, that have been working faithfully there for a very long time, not to mention UNRWA. 5 days, $30 million grant, and they waved through 9 mandatory counterterrorism reviews. Do you think that's efficient and effective?
I'd have to look at that particular situation.
I would think you would
My
want
only
to. It's within your purview. It's
Right.
$30 million.
Yeah, I'd
Let
have
me
to-
move on.
Sure.
This organization has been rejected by Humanitarian and Human Rights Organization. It's proving to be a death trap for Gazans. Do you know that, and I want to ask as I end here, I recognize my time is up, Mr. Chairman, nearly 900 Gazans have been shot and killed desperately seeking food in some of these aid areas.
The chair
Thousands.
will remind members that you're more than welcome to put a question in writing through the chair, and that
And I will
will be
seek
submitted.
more questions. I seek unanimous consent to enter onto the record. May I tell you what I have?
Yes,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
an article.
2 articles. Gaza, 875 people confirmed dead trying to source food in recent weeks. And then a Reuters article, former
Ordered.
Doge employees rushed grant to Trump-backed Gaza aid group over staff objections.
So ordered.
Thank you.
With that,
Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In Pennsylvania, nearly 65% of nursing home residents rely upon Medicaid. In my district outside Philadelphia, it is a lifeline for more than 15,000 seniors who have worked and earned access to affordable, high-quality care, who deserve to age with grace and dignity. President Trump and the Republicans' big ugly bill will cut Pennsylvania's Medicaid program, known as Penny, by about $53 million over the next decade. What will happen to our parents, to our grandparents? Some facilities may be forced to make impossible decisions, like reducing staff or raising prices for those who don't qualify for Medicaid. Others simply will not survive. I know how worrisome it is to watch aging parents need to leave the home they loved. I know how critical it is to find them the best possible care. I saw it with my own in-laws, Joan and Bill Canan. After all, through Medicaid, think about it. I was disabled and you offered me aid. I was infirmed and you offered me care. I was aging and you offered me dignity. That's what Republicans voted in lockstep to tear away. Shame. I yield back.
Ms. Dean?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, ranking members and Chairman Rogers. I'm pleased to be here on this committee, but I'm disappointed, sadly, with the bill that is in front of us. There's so much that we could be talking about, and so I associate myself with the ranking member's comments, with my colleagues' comments on this side of the dais. So I thought today I would just focus on ATF. The mission of ATF is to, quote, protect the public from crimes involving firearms, explosives, arson, and the diversion of alcohol and tobacco products, regulates lawful commerce in firearms and explosives, and provides worldwide support to law enforcement, public safety, and industry partners. This bill proposes a budget for ATF of $1.2 billion. It is a $418 million cut, a 48% cut to ATF. ATF, who has fewer than, I think, about 5,000 employees, 2,500 are special agents. This would require the cutting of at least 1,000 positions, and ATF, we all know, is already overworked and under-resourced. So I'm absolutely puzzled by that. ATF plays a vital role in assisting our federal, state, local law enforcement in investigating, preventing, and prosecuting violent crimes. ATF makes America safer. For example, the National Integrated Ballistic Information Network, or NIBIN, is a critical tool for solving and preventing gun crimes. It allows law enforcement to link shell casings from different crime scenes and connect recovered firearms to previous shootings using advanced imaging technology. ATF's gun tracing program, eTrace, is a vital tool for state and local law enforcement, not only to help solve individual gun crimes, but also to uncover and disrupt larger firearm trafficking. Through the E-Trace program, agencies can submit recovered firearms to be traced back to the first retail purchaser, generating critical leads and intelligence. Some of the provisions in the bill that are perplexing to me, perhaps I don't fully understand them. Page 133 of the CJS bill, section 5568. None of the funds made available by this act may be used by ATF Demand 2 program unless ATF modifies the program. Let me read to you some more other puzzling things in here. None of the funds made available may be used for a gun buyback or relinquishment program. None of the funds made available by this act may be used to fund or implement any red flag or extreme risk protection laws. That's just a few. Let me try some more. None of the funds made available by this act may be used to pay the salaries or expenses of personnel at ATF. None of the funds made available, here we go, none of the funds made available by this or any other act may be used to classify, register any firearm with an attached stabilizing brace or other similar brace or rearward attachment. More and more and more in here about what the ATF can't do, what our funds cannot do that would protect and keep us safer. I simply don't understand that. Why would we cut half of the resources of ATF? Why would we want to eliminate, reduce, or limit the tracing program? Why is that? ATF keeps us safer. Could someone please explain to me how this is possible?
Will the gentlelady yield for a question?
I will yield for a question, Mr. Clyde.
How do you come up with a 48% cut? I don't come up with that. I come up
Mr. Clyde,
with a 24%
I have a question for
cut.
you. Do you
No,
have a?
no, I'm asking you a question, and you said you would yield for a question.
Yes, I saw.
So I'm asking the question, how do you come up with a 48% cut?
I'll tell you, but I want to ask you a question as well while I'm getting you that answer. Do you have a pecuniary interest in guns?
Ma'am, I'm waiting for your answer to my question.
Mr. Clyde, I think it is incumbent upon you
Ms.
in all
Dean,
of this
I asked
legislation
you a question, and you said
You're a
that
gun
you would,
dealer. We
you
all
would
know it.
yield
You
to a
just
question.
never- you
So
just-
would you please
Yes.
answer my question? That's all I'm asking. How do you come up with 48%? I come up with
Are you afraid to say
24%.
that you own 2 gun shops?
Ma'am, I'm asking a question, and I'm asking you to answer. How do you come up with 48%? I don't think it's possible. It's not 48%. I
Take a
just
look.
want to get the record straight, all right, as to what the actual
Clyde,
cut is.
Mr. Chairman.
Please.
Mr. Clyde, I'll be happy to get you that. I can dig it out of my resources here. Now, would you answer my question? Do you own 2 gun shops? You have a pecuniary interest in this legislation. Are you going to recuse yourself from a vote?
I asked you a question. I'm waiting for
I
an
told you
answer.
I'd be happy to get that to you and to your staff.
That's fine, but I'm waiting. I'm still waiting.
Mr. Chairman, would he like to answer the question? I have a point of order, Mr. Chairman. I have a point of order. If a person on this committee has a pecuniary interest, a conflict of interest in the legislation, should that be disclosed? Oh, could you get me the number, the 48%? It's in our opening pages. Oh, then that might be my mistake.
The point of order is not entertained. Any other members wish to make
I'm
remarks?
sorry, Mr. Chairman, I did not hear your answer. And I have a correction that I'd be happy to give Mr. Clyde.
Time of the gentlelady has expired.
She's trying to answer his question.
She may proceed.
Next, I'd be happy to yield her.
She may proceed.
If that's fine with the chair.
Yes. Do other members wish to make opening remarks?
I do
You can correct me. You correct me for Mr. Clyde, and then maybe I'll get an answer to his question.
I would like to have a chance to make a statement, Mr. Chair.
Gentleman's recognized. For 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I yield the gentlelady 30 seconds.
I made a mistake, Mr. Clyde. It's a 48% to a portion of the ATF funding. It's an overall, is it 25.7% cut, 1,000 positions. And now will you answer my question?
Gentlelady is recognized to explain her amendment.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chairman Cole. I rise in support of my amendment, which states that none of the funds made available to the Treasury Department by this bill can be used to prevent the release of financial records. After all, here we are marking up the Financial Services and General Government Appropriations Bill, including suspicious activity reports, SARS, relating to the Epstein-Maxwell case to Congress. Colleagues, enough is enough. It is past time that we have the full transparency into the financing of the Epstein horrific sex trafficking network. We quite simply need to follow the money. This is something that has already been bipartisan in its support. And I invite through this amendment further bipartisan support. Senator Wyden, for example, for years has been investigating the financing of Epstein's sex trafficking network. And over this past weekend, as part of his committee's investigation, Oversight Chairman James Comer sent a letter to Treasury Secretary Bessent requesting that the department produce certain SARs relevant to his investigation. This information is critical for effective congressional oversight. We need to understand the scope of the operation to secure justice for the victims and to hold those involved accountable. It is our duty, after all, to seek justice and to prevent further harm, as Mr. Hoyer said. You don't traffic 1,000 children over the course of many years and just arrest 2 people. That just simply doesn't happen. There are perpetrators out there who probably have gone on to injure other children and women. We know Mr. Epstein and Ms. Maxwell were not the only criminals in this case. Numerous prominent businessmen were financially connected to Epstein in ways one can only describe as abnormal. We need to know if these transactions raised alarms, and if not, what went wrong, so that we can prevent something like this from ever happening again or happening right now. Additionally, the girls and women, they were criminally assaulted, they were raped, they were trafficked, they were molested, they were groomed. They deserve full honesty, transparency about what happened to them. And they deserve a chance to heal, if possible, and where possible. I commend the victims and the survivors families for their strength in coming forward and coming here. May they lead us out of this dark period. I'm sad to say that I fear my amendment will not gather the positive support from my Republican colleagues. I sincerely hope you will join me on this amendment. Let's get the SARs. Let's not allow for the SARs to be blocked by our own Congress, our own government, by our own acts as appropriators. I want to read a little more of what one of my colleagues here was reading. Today, victims of Jeffrey Epstein gave emotional accounts of sexual abuse on Wednesday here at the Capitol. They spoke at the steps of the U.S. Capitol and called for lawmakers to release more files about the convicted sex offender. One woman, Lisa Phillips, said the group had begun compiling a confidential list of Epstein associates who they say were involved in abuse. Quote, "We will confidentially compile the names we all know were regularly in the Epstein world," end quote. She said it will be done by survivors and for survivors. Let's stand with survivors as members of Congress. Let's stand with them and make sure everyone is treated to justice. And I ask for support for my amendment.